Hey guys, my name's Cody Barton. Welcome to my channel. And one of the biggest concerns for landlords right now is what I want to talk about today, which is the eviction moratorium that once again just got extended. If you hadn't been keeping an eye out, the eviction moratorium, which basically prevented landlords from being able to forcibly remove their tenants for non-payment of rent. That expired as of March 31st is when it was supposed to expire, but the CDC 2 days before decided that they were going to extend it, which is now June 30th. So after once again another extension of the eviction moratorium, it is now becoming more and more concerning for landlords. And so if you are an aspiring landlord or you are a landlord, I want to share my experience with going through the eviction process with a tenant in this time. Now, unfortunately, this is something that we never want to do. I never like to be in the situation that I have to evict any tenants from the properties that I own. I always like to make sure that the tenants are screened well enough that they're going to be able to afford the property, and then I'm setting them up for success by allowing them to move into one of my homes. And so while we do the best measures we possibly can to make sure it's the best fit, sometimes just stuff happens, and you know, this is the situation that we get put into. So I get a question on this pretty frequently, and here's the thing. Nobody really knows what the guidelines truly even are for this eviction moratorium. I've literally heard something different from different people, different attorneys, different different offices saying that you can do this, different offices that you could say that no, you can't do that. And so there's a lot of information out there that just isn't very true. So I'm just going to share what has worked for me. I don't want to give any legal advice. I don't want to give any ideas of something for you to go and necessarily do, but just the exact experience that I went through. I've had to evict a few different tenants during the time when the moratorium was in place, and we were able to have all of those tenants move out. So the important thing to understand is the moratorium protects against tenants that are unable to pay rent, right? Like that's the primary thing. So if they're unable to pay rent, you aren't supposed to be allowed to have them moved out of the property just for that. One of the situations that you can have them moved out for is, say if they move in people that aren't supposed to be living in the property, that's another version of breaching the lease. Another thing would be if there's violence or drug activity or gang activity in the property, you could still evict for those things. The moratorium doesn't protect against those things. So one situation that I did have with a resident living in one of the homes that I own, they started doing drugs in the property. They moved in an ex-convict into the property as a roommate. And then we sent over a contractor to try to fix an issue that they were having in the home. And they swung an axe at our contractor and broke open the wall with the axe. So yeah, it was an interesting experience, fun things of being a landlord. But in that particular situation, we were able to have the tenant resident removed from the property because they were having violent activity going on in the home. They were using drugs in the property. We found on social media, literally in our property, they were posting themselves doing drugs in our property. And then the third thing was moving in other residents that that are over 18 that didn't qualify for the lease that they were on. So we were able to have them move out. It wasn't for non-payment of rent, but at the same time, this person also wasn't paying rent, which was another amazing thing. So that's one situation that I was able to get a tenant out. But here's the really interesting thing. And the thing that frustrates me is, who's on the landlord side? I mean, yes, I get it. Like, I own the properties, I get rental income, that's great. But the thing is, I own a lot of different properties, and if all of the properties, their tenants stopped paying rent and I couldn't evict any of them, that would be a serious problem. And I think the challenge is here is that there's people taking advantage of this. And here's the crazy thing. I'm going to read to you just a few of the points that the CDC declaration states. And then in my experience, what happened. So the points that the CDC has is, for the resident that's living in the property, they have to file this, basically give it to the judge, give it to you as the owner of the property, and that's basically it. So it says, I have to the best efforts to obtain all available government assistance for rent or housing. I expect to earn no more than $99,000 in annual income for the calendar year of 2020. I am unable to pay my full rent or make full housing payment due to substantial loss of household income, loss of compensable hours, or layoffs, blah, blah, blah. If evicted, I would become homeless and need to move into a homeless shelter, or would need a new residence that would be shared with multiple other people, which would put me at risk. I am using my best efforts to make timely partial payments that are as close to the full payment as the individual circumstances may permit, taking into account other non-discretionary expenses. So there's a few other pieces on this particular document as well. But I think one of the most interesting things about that is the resident living in the property doesn't have to prove any of it. You as the landlord, me as the landlord. So this is the funny thing. This is hilarious. Is if I as the landlord, I have a resident that's living in the property, and this particular property that I'm talking about, this person had a great job earning 6 figures. And so they're making great money at their job, and they just aren't paying rent. And what's funny is that myself as the landlord, I have to prove that they have a job and that they can pay something. So what does that mean? I have to go chase them down or hire a private investigator to go follow them and see if they actually are going to work. What? I as the landlord have to then prove that, and the resident, the tenant living in my property, doesn't have to prove that they're out of income, doesn't have to prove that they are in any way affected by COVID, doesn't have to prove anything besides just signing this document saying, raising their hands that I can't pay rent, here you go landlord, you can't do anything about it, and you as the landlord, me as the landlord, just get stuck and basically get kicked in the balls and said, all right, sucks to be you. And yeah, so that's basically what's going on with that particular resident. And it's really sad because, I always like to have compassion for the tenant residents that are living in the homes that I own. And we are working out situations with other ones that are affected by it as well. And we're happy to. I'm human. I'd like to be helped as well if I'm, needing it. But the thing is people are taking advantage of it. People are staying in properties, not paying rent on purpose, and just draining and taking advantage of landlords. I'm thankful to be in the position that I'm in, but just from fall of 2020 until spring now of 2021, I'm out over $30,000 in non-collected rent. And I have been paying those mortgages on all of those properties every single month with with nothing. It's just something that you have to eat as the landlord right now. What's the point of all of this? I really just want to share the experience that I've had thus far with dealing with the CDC, which honestly, in my full opinion, I think it's freaking unconstitutional what they're doing. I don't think it's right. I think the local regulatory system, depending on whatever state you're in, should, as they always have, be setting the guidelines of, what evictions look like and everything. And then just overall, I think the government's doing a really poor job at setting the criteria and setting guidelines on what's okay for the tenants to be doing in the property and what's not okay. Like letting people stay in a property that I own that they aren't paying any rent and I'm paying the mortgage every month on that property while they do have a job, and I as the owner have to pay a private investigator to go find them working and prove then to the same judge and pay more attorney's fees that they are working to then hopefully try to get them out of my property. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if that makes sense to you, if that, that seems like a fair setup. I mean, it is what it is. It's what the government's, doing and what they're putting into place. But, I just, I don't think it's right, as a landlord. So I'm not saying that, anyone should feel bad for me or, oh, woe is me. This is what I signed up for and being a landlord. I know the risks. I know that I didn't know the risk of, COVID and the CDC, but I knew the risks of, hey, there's things that happen when you're a landlord, and that's why it's important for those of you that are aspiring landlords to have reserves for your rental properties, because you don't know what can happen, and you want to make sure that you're going to be in a good spot financially to, carry that burden while you have to. So, guys, if you got any value from this video, as always, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let me know in the comments. What are your thoughts? If you own rental properties, let me know what experiences you're seeing. This is just in Arizona. Again, no legal advice, no advice of saying what you should do or what you shouldn't do, but just, a non-biased, opinion of just somebody that does own rental properties and the experiences and the way that I feel about it and, the way I feel about it going forward. So let me know. We'll see you guys soon.